IdaBWells was born on the 16th of July, 1862, in Holly Springs, Mississippi, into slavery during the Civil War. Her parents, James and Lizzie Wells, came out of bondage into the uncertain promise of Reconstruction, and they raised their daughter in a household that prized dignity, education, and political awareness. Her father was connected to Rust College, one of the early schools founded for formerly enslaved people, and that atmosphere shaped Ida early. She grew up understanding that literacy, self-respect, and public action were not luxuries for Black people in America, but tools of survival. Her childhood was cut short by catastrophe. In 1878, when she was still a teenager, a yellow fever epidemic killed both of her parents and one of her brothers. Rather than allow the surviving children to be separated, Ida took responsibility for her family. She became a teacher while still very young and helped keep her siblings together. That moment matters because it explains nearly everything that came after. Wells did not enter public life as a sheltered intellectual. She entered it as a young Black woman forced to become an adult overnight, carrying family duty and racial responsibility at the same time. Teaching gave her a livelihood, but injustice gave her a public voice. In 1884, while traveling by train, Wells bought a first-class ticket and took a seat in the ladies' car. When railroad officials ordered her to move to a segregated smoking car, she refused. She was forcibly removed. She sued the railroad, won damages at first, and then lost when the Tennessee Supreme Court reversed the lower court's ruling. The case did not break her. It sharpened her. She learned that even when the law appeared open, power could still twist it against Black citizens. That lesson pushed her more decisively toward journalism and activism. In Memphis, she began to write under the pen name Iola. She taught school, attended summer sessions at Fisk, and built a reputation as a fierce newspaper voice. She wrote for Black papers including The Living Way, became editor of the Evening Star, and later joined the Free Speech and Headlight as a partner and editor. Her editorials criticized unequal schooling and the daily humiliations imposed on Black life in the South. She paid a price for that boldness. After speaking out about the poor conditions of Black schools, she lost her teaching job. But what looked like a setback became a turning point. Journalism became her full calling. The defining crisis of her life came in 1892. 3 Black men in Memphis, including her friend Thomas Moss, were lynched after a conflict tied to the success of their grocery store, a business that challenged white economic power. Wells investigated the murders and wrote forcefully about what had happened. She rejected the comforting lie that lynching was mainly punishment for crime. She argued, with evidence, that lynching was a political weapon used to terrorize Black communities, crush Black advancement, and preserve white control. While she was away from Memphis, a white mob destroyed the office of her newspaper and threatened her life. She could not safely return. In effect, she was driven into exile. From that point on, Ida B. Wells became one of the great investigative journalists in American history. She gathered facts from newspaper accounts, witness testimony, and on-the-ground reporting, and she turned anti-lynching work into a disciplined campaign of research and public persuasion. Her pamphlet Southern Horrors, and then a Red Record in 1895 documented lynching statistically and morally, exposing how often accusations against Black victims were fabricated or distorted. She carried this campaign beyond the South, lecturing across the United States and in Great Britain, forcing international audiences to confront racial terror in America. She did not simply denounce violence. She dismantled the excuses used to justify it. Chicago became the next major stage of her life. In 1895, she married Ferdinand L. Barnett, a lawyer, editor, and public official, and from then on she was widely known as Ida B. Wells Barnett. Marriage did not end her public work. It changed its form. She became a mother, continued writing, and entered Chicago's civic and political world with force. She organized Black women, spoke for anti-lynching and suffrage causes, and proved that domestic life and public leadership did not have to cancel one another. She insisted on being both a family woman and a political woman, in an era when many reformers expected women to choose. In Chicago, her activism widened. She helped found women's clubs, worked within the National Association of Colored Women, and in 1909 took part in the movement that led to the founding of the NAACP. That same year, she founded the Negro Fellowship League, a social service center that helped black migrants arriving from the South with housing, work, education, and legal support. Wells understood that civil rights was not only about speeches and court cases, it was also about whether ordinary people had a bed, a job lead, a reading room, and a place to stand when the city treated them as disposable. She was just as fearless in the suffrage movement as she had been in anti-lynching work. In 1913, she organized the Alpha Suffrage Club in Chicago, widely described as the first suffrage club for black women. When organizers of the Washington Suffrage Parade tried to impose segregation, Wells refused to accept humiliation quietly. She stepped into the Illinois delegation anyway and marched. That moment was classic Ida B. Wells Barnett. Disciplined, strategic, unafraid of conflict, and unwilling to let movements for justice reproduce the very racism they claimed to oppose. Her later years were no retreat. She continued anti-lynching work, fought segregation in Chicago, served as a probation officer, backed black political advancement, and even made an unsuccessful run for the Illinois State Senate in 1930. She kept pressing the same essential question that had guided her whole life. Would black Americans be treated as full citizens, or only as people expected to endure whatever the nation chose to do to them? She died in Chicago on the 25th of March, 1931. By then, she had spent decades doing work that was dangerous, unpopular, and far ahead of its time. What makes Ida B. Wells Barnett so towering is not only that she was brave, though she was. It is that she was exact. She believed in facts, names, dates, testimony, records, patterns, and proof. She understood that terror survives on silence and myth, and that truth, carefully gathered and boldly spoken, can become a weapon for justice. Long before the modern civil rights movement, long before investigative reporting became a celebrated profession, Ida B. Wells Barnett was already showing the nation what it meant to confront American violence with evidence, intellect, and moral fire. Her life was the story of a child of slavery who became a witness for her people, a defender of black womanhood, a fighter for the vote, and one of the clearest consciences this country has ever produced. Subscribe for history, shorts, museum treasures, exhibit highlights, and stories the world must not forget. True history should always be preserved, available to anyone who's interested in knowing the truth. Go to afroacademy.org. Thank you. Please share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be posted when we have a new video. Make a comment. The oppressor tries to keep us from knowing the truth. The truth is always the truth. Isn't that the truth? May the rest of your life be the best of your life. Or on Z.